Hi, so today I wanted to start a series specifically for those who are actually interested in Christian theology. What I wanted to do was start a new series called Moments of Theology. This will be a time whereby I will go through systematic theology books, a chapter at a time, a section at a time, really go slowly through it so that myself and the listeners could really chew on the content that I will be digging into and that we can think on these issues together. So today I wanted to start with John Calvin's Institutes of the Christian Religion. This is translated by Henry Beveridge. It's a fantastic edition. So I'm going to really encourage for those theology enthusiasts to get one for yourself and at a later stage perhaps and follow along. For those who are unable to get one, just follow along with myself. So today, I will not give any introductions into the life of John Calvin, etc. I think you can just do that on your own through Google and by different means. So, and plus, I don't want to necessarily give an entire introduction and preface into the book. What I can say is it is a theological book. It is pastoral and apologetical in nature. And so what we're going to do is we're going to go through books and sections, as I have already mentioned. So the first book is a study of God. Okay, it's actually called, let me quickly say that book first is Of the Knowledge of the Creator. Of the knowledge of God, the Creator. That's what it's called. And the first chapter, it's literally just 3 sections in it. It's a very small chapter. It's called The Knowledge of God and of Ourselves Mutually Connected, the nature of the connection. Now, I'm not going to read the entire chapter for you, but what I'll do is I have pre-read the chapter and I've made some pointers as to what is being spoken of. The point of this chapter is to help lay a foundation before we start studying theology. And where John Calvin begins is to help us understand that firstly, the study of God and the study of man, right, the nature, it's very closely linked together. And there is a great importance of studying such a topic, right? Okay, so for example, in the first section of this chapter, he says, "For in the first place, no man can survey himself without forthwith turning his thoughts towards God, in whom he lives and moves, because it is perfectly obvious that the endowments which we possess cannot possibly be from ourselves. No, that our very being is nothing else than subsistence in God alone." That is talking about the nature of man and how we ought to see ourselves. If we want to discover and study of the nature of man more appropriately and fully, we must look and we must take from God as to where our abilities, and the specific word he actually uses is endowments. Our endowments comes from God. And so looking at man, an honest look at man takes you to God. Okay, so basically that's what he's trying to say. In the second place, those blessings which unceasingly distill to us from heaven are like streams conducting us to the fountain. Here again, the infinitude of good which resides in God becomes more apparent from our poverty. In the sense that when you look at the relationship between and the differences between God and man, to more appropriately study and learn of who God is, it is always good to see how poor we are, and in light of our poverty and our inabilities, how great then God is. For example, man is unable to create the universe, right? We can create great things. We can create many things. For example, people have created this book, right? Not the sources that the book was created from, but the book in itself, right? To bring this to fruition, man has created that. However, and so we glory in this book that we've created. But then John Calvin is saying, but that if we are so boastful in our greatness, in the sense that we've been able to create, a lot of things, materials. For example, this very camera that I'm recording through is a result of our creative ability, which is great and fantastic, and to really, from a humanly perspective and an unsaved perspective, boastful, right? We must boast and be glad the fact that we have such abilities. However, God, if we look at our abilities, we must then remember to also look at the greatness of God from the lens of our abilities, that He is able to do far more. The limitations of His greatness is not even understood by human mind. And so that's what He's trying to attempt. He's attempting to help us understand that it is a helpful way of looking at God is by looking at ourselves, and though we may think that we are great, but an honest look at ourselves and God is soon we realize that we're actually very weak and that we're very poor and that He is greater. So the greatness of God is exposed at that point, okay? So he's trying to link the two. I hope that you understand that to better understand man, you must go to God. To better understand God, you can understand Him without looking at man, but it is an additional factor that helps you better look at God, okay? And then second section of this chapter, he goes on to talking about the importance of the study of God. I'm going to quickly read something here. He says, "For we always seem to ourselves as just, upright, wise, holy, until we are convinced by clear evidence of our injustice, vileness, folly, and impurity. Convinced, however, we are not if we look to ourselves only, and not to the Lord also, He being the only standard by the application of which this conversation can be produced." In the sense that what he means is that the importance of studying God is in recognizing human limitation, human folly, human need for uprightness, and etc., etc. So we can never actually know our need if we never actually study God, right? The study of theology becomes of pertinent value over here. Okay, so he even actually gives us an illustration which I'd like to share with you. He says, "If at midday we either look down to the ground or on the surrounding objects which lie open to our view, we think of ourselves endued with a very strong and piercing eyesight. But when we look up to the sun and gaze at it unveiled, the sight which did excellently well for the earth is instantly so dazzled and confounded by the refulgence as to oblige us to confess that our acuteness in discerning terrestrial objects is mere dimness when applied to the sun." That we think that we have such strong and perfect vision to look around us. We glory in our ability to see. However, our ability to see is truly tested when we actually look at the sun unveiled, directly at the sun, and that is when we realize that, oh my goodness, I actually cannot really see that well. I cannot see everything. So the limitation at that point is exposed to us, that I cannot see everything, and that my sight has its limitations. And so he's linking the two, is that the study of God is important because it helps us realize our limitations and our need for God. Therefore, the study of God is of necessary value. And then the last section of this chapter, he basically is just talking about the benefits of studying God, that there is not only a personal benefit in the life of me, myself, and I, however, a collective, a societal study of God leads to societal betterment. John Calvin says that the study of God is where the betterment of life, an improved experience of life actually begins, whereby governments are improved because they're functioned and they're operated by human individuals. And so if individuals benefit and are humbled by their limitations when they study the theology, a proper theology, the study of God, when they conduct in such matters and subjects, what you have is humbled human beings. What you have is then a more submitted human race to God and his laws, and that is better for all men generally. So to summarize, what he says is that the study of God should begin with a place where we see our limitations and we see simultaneously God's greatness. And that comparative analysis helps us to see how great he is. It adds to his value, and it then further reminds us of our limitations. Second of all, that the study of God is absolutely necessary. And third of all, that at the point where the study of God is conducted, there is great benefit to individuals and society at large. So this is where he begins his chapter. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was simple for you to understand. If I was a bit confusing or whatever the case is, please do leave a comment, a question in the comment section below. Subscribe, help me make this channel better, help me make the content better, and please let's go on this journey together as we look into John Calvin and many other systematic theology resources. My name is Shamun Khakan, and I'll see you soon.